Okay, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating chapter of science, the actual journey of human development. We're going to look at the exact mechanisms behind how we grow, how we change, and ultimately, how we become us. It's this incredible journey of self-discovery and, well, it literally applies to every single one of us.
We're kicking things off with this absolutely beautiful thought from Rabindranath Tagore. I wish I could travel by the road that crosses the baby's mind and out beyond all bounds. I love starting here because it just perfectly captures the wonder of the developing mind. It's a great reminder that development isn't some boring biological checklist, right? It's this boundless, dynamic journey. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the meaning of development, then look at genetics and environment, the context of our lives, the prenatal stage, infancy and early bonds, and finally the childhood years.
All right, Section 1, the meaning of development. Let's get our definition straight right out of the gate, because development is way more than just, getting older.
The real key here is that development is an interwoven dance. It's a progressive, highly predictable pattern of changes that kicks off at conception and literally keeps going your entire life. It's driven by biology, your genes, your brain, but also your cognitive processes, like how you think and problem solve, and your socio-emotional world, like your relationships and personality. You just can't separate these three. They're constantly bouncing off each other.
And this brings us to a distinction that trips a lot of people up: growth versus maturation. Growth is simple. It's just getting bigger, stuff you can measure, like your height. Maturation, though, that's the unfolding of your genetic blueprint in a very specific, orderly sequence. Think about it. You have to sit before you stand, and stand before you walk. You absolutely cannot rush maturation with extra practice if the physical structure just isn't ready for it. So yeah, biology definitely sets the timeline.
Moving on to Section 2, genetics and the environment. Let's look at the tug-of-war and the partnership between our genes and our surroundings.
So what makes you uniquely you really comes down to genotype versus phenotype. Your genotype is the raw, inherited genetic code, but the phenotype, that's what we actually see in the real world. It's your height, sure, but it's also your intelligence, your creativity. Basically, your genotype sets the absolute upper and lower limits, but your environment, that decides exactly where you land within those limits. You might have the genes to be super tall, but without good nutrition growing up, you're not going to hit that maximum height.
And since this never happens in a vacuum, Section 3 looks at the context of our lives. We have to zoom out and look at the socio-cultural world enveloping us.
Yuri Brunfenrunner mapped this out beautifully. Think of his model like Russian nesting dolls. You got the microsystem right in the middle, your immediate family and friends, then the mesosystem, which is how those immediate groups interact, like your parents talking to your teacher. Zoom out more to the exosystem, indirect stuff, like the stress from a parent's job bleeding into the home. Then there's the macro system, which is your broader culture, and finally, the chronosystem, the actual timeline of historical events you live through. Every single one of these layers is shaping you.
Another really interesting lens is Durganand Sinha's ecological model, specifically looking at child development in India. He breaks it into two main parts. The visible upper layers are the everyday realities: home conditions, overcrowding, school quality, peer groups. But those are constantly being shaped by the surrounding layers, the broader geography, class or caste institutions, and basic amenities like reliable electricity or clean water. So your environment is every bit as complex as your DNA.
All right, blueprint established. Section 4, the prenatal stage. Let's look at the actual chronological building of a human.
We're going to take a quick, rapid-fire tour through the early stages. Prenatal, from conception to 40 weeks, infancy up to 2 years, early childhood from 2 to 7, and middle to late childhood from 7 to 11. Now, during those incredibly fragile 40 weeks of the prenatal stage, your genetic blueprint is running the show, but it is highly vulnerable to external threats. We call these teratogens. This means environmental agents, things like maternal infections, radiation, drugs, or even pollution like lead. Exposure to these can completely derail normal development. It's pretty wild to realize that the outside world starts shaping us long before we even take our first breath.
Next up, Section 5, infancy and early bonds. And as you'll see, newborns are actually way more competent than we give them credit for.
Babies definitely aren't helpless. They show up completely equipped with this built-in toolkit of automatic reflexes just to survive. Stroke their cheek and they do the rooting reflex to find food. Hear a loud noise, the Moro reflex kicks in and they throw their arms out. Put a finger in their hand and the grasp reflex is surprisingly strong.
These are basically the foundation for future motor skills, and most of them just naturally fade away in the first year as the baby's brain matures and takes over conscious control.
When it comes to how kids construct their mental world, Jean Piaget is the go-to guy. In his first phase, the sensory motor stage, which is birth to roughly 2 years old, babies experience absolutely everything through their senses and physical actions. At first, they don't have what we call object permanence, meaning if you put a blanket over a toy, to the baby, that toy literally just ceased to exist. They don't know it's still there. But around 8 months, they finally start looking for it. That is a massive, massive cognitive leap.
Now, on the emotional side, there's this absolutely groundbreaking study you have to know, Harlow's surrogate mother experiment. Researchers separated baby monkeys from their moms and gave them 2 fake substitutes. One was made of harsh wire but had milk. The other was made of soft cloth but had 0 food. Astonishingly, the babies spent almost all their time clinging to the soft cloth mom. It proved something huge. Warm, responsive contact comfort, not just food, is the literal foundation of love and secure attachment.
Which brings us past the toddler years to Section 6, the childhood years. This is an era of just explosive physical, cognitive, and social growth.
Kids gain physical control in a very specific, genetically hardwired order, following 2 main rules. First, the cephalocaudal trend. That's just a fancy way of saying development moves from head to tail. It's why a baby can control its head way before it can control its legs to walk. Second is the proximodistal trend, where growth radiates from the center of the body outward. So they master their torso before their arms, and their arms before they can use their tiny fingertips for fine motor skills. As kids grow, their social circles explode outward to include peers, media, the whole broader culture. And that forces us to ask a really critical question. Are the differences in how boys and girls behave purely biological, or is society writing the script? Psychologists usually answer this by separating 2 concepts. Sex is the strict biological dimension. Gender, on the other hand, is the social dimension. Gender roles are expectations heavily socialized by the world around us. Parents, often totally unconsciously, might give daughters more dependence training and sons more independence training through the chores or toys they provide. And eventually, kids internalize this and actively mold themselves to fit those cultural norms. We also see this massive shift in how kids think about morality. In early childhood, it's totally external. A kid thinks something is wrong simply because they'll get in trouble, and right because they get a reward. But as they get older, moving into late childhood, they actually start internalizing society's rules. They follow them because they want to be seen as good and win approval. It's a crucial stepping stone toward building their own internal moral compass as adults. Okay, let's wrap this up with the core takeaways. First, human development is highly plastic. You are capable of changing and learning your entire life. Second, it's a dynamic process of both gains and losses at every single stage. And finally, you are profoundly shaped by the specific historical, cultural, and social environments you live in. We are all essentially the product of our genes dancing with the world around us.
So I'll leave you with this to chew on today. Look at your own life. How have your incredibly unique genetic blueprint and the specific environments you grew up in combined to shape the distinct course of your development? Who you are right now is the result of that ongoing, amazing process. Thanks for hanging out for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a fresh perspective on the journey of becoming you.